What we do here is go back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Sunday afternoon edition of Men in Stripes, brought to you by StripeHype.com, a fan-sided exclusive. Don't worry, people, we can't go a week without giving you this show, so we made it happen this week for sure. Tim Dandu here, excited for another edition of the show with none other than our excellent co-host and co-editor of StripeHype.com. This is Mr. Matthew Wilson.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I am still on fire after the Cavaliers championship victory.
Yeah, of course, Thursday night was quite interesting. Did you guys get hit, terribly bad with those storms?
It was weird. My power was up, but my cable and internet were out. So it was odd.
Yeah, of course, and it came across the, pretty much straight across, and has now canceled the Greenbrier Classic. That's I think supposed to be 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you haven't heard with that, Greenbrier Classic was canceled due to 3 feet of water on the course, and the fears that basically mud basically is going to rule the course for a little bit. So, won't have it cleaned up in time for the Greenbrier Classic course. Tragedy there with a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but a number of people unfortunately losing loved ones to the storms there in Virginia, West Virginia. Of course, you can always help with the American Red Cross. American Red Cross, text 90999 to make a $10 donation. But definitely a lot of people there that need some help and need some help rebuilding. Of course, if you haven't seen it, Bubba Watson put it on his Twitter of a video of him at Greenbrier.
Really?
Yeah. He was actually at Greenbrier at the resort there, getting himself ready for the Greenbrier Classic and taking a couple practice rounds. And he got caught in the... of course, he was higher up, but he got caught in the flooding. And you can see basically how Greenbrier and the first hole was, a river. There was no creek about it.
How about that, man? Huh. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like Matthew said, if you have a chance to donate to the Red Cross for that, that's an awesome thing to do. Any little bit helps in that circumstances. We try to help these families as they try to recover from such a tragedy. So, a lot of us have some family in those areas as well, so definitely something we are keeping our eyes on for sure. So, with that being said there, Matthew, I'm making this transition slowly but surely to Cincinnati Bengals news. Are you ready to kick it this week?
Let's go.
Can I kick it?
You can kick it.
The correct answer was yes, you can. A Tribe Called Quest would be really upset with you.
I'm sorry.
A Tribe Called Quest would be so upset with you.
You realize how much I'm a non wrestling follower.
A Tribe Called Quest is a hip hop group.
Is he a hip hop group? See, shows you how much I listen to groups. We were talking about Coolio before the show.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, and of course I made a Kenan and Kel reference.
Which is not a bad thing at all.
No, of course not. Old school Nick, you can't beat it.
Alright, so with that being said, a little bit of a slow week in Bengals news this week, but a few things to definitely touch on we can look at. Obviously, first things first, let's give our props to Geno Atkins now being listed as number 29 on the NFL's top 100 list, which means somewhere Aaron Donald's going to be listed better than him, which I totally and utterly disagree with as much as I like Aaron Donald as a player. But Geno definitely getting his props as far as from his peers being one of the most well-respected players. The Bengals continue to litter this list. And we're getting down to, I think we got 20 guys left, and A.J. Green's name is still not on there. You don't think there's a chance?
I think there's about as much chance of A.J. Green missing this list as there is for basically half the LA Rams team to return.
I think there's as much chance of A.J. Green missing this list as there is the Cincinnati Reds making the playoffs.
I can almost say Pittsburgh Pirates at this point, too.
Oh, yeah, man.
That although they're on a 2-game win streak over LA, so...
That's true. Is Kershaw pitching tonight?
Kershaw is pitching tonight.
Ooh, that's going to be a good game. I'll have to watch that.
I haven't seen who's opposing them either.
Is Italian? Was tonight the night of Jameson Italian?
Tyon was Friday night.
Friday night, okay.
And then And then for some odd reason, LA absolutely got dominated by Jeff Locke, which was kind of funny.
God. I'm sure you've seen that clip right of Tom Brenneman, right? When Jeff Locke like walks the guy out of Higher Dreads game, and you can hear him be like, "This guy sucks." It's Cool. They're bringing up Cool tonight. Cool's making his debut. Chad Cool.
Yeah, that should have been Glass now, but okay.
So, with that being said, yeah, well, like I said, give our props here to Gino. Hope to God AJ Green's on this list. It'll be a travesty if he's not. I'll be furious. But now we can move into some news there. So we know the Bengals went out and made a few nice moves, little small moves in free agency, just to add to the team and try to fill in some holes, whether it be due to suspensions or injuries or free agency losses. And then we went out and got Carlos Dansby, who we all have agreed is a really good pickup for this team, even though he's up there in his mid-30s, which is apparently like 80 in football years. He's a guy who's still been productive, still gets a lot of tackles, is very good in pass coverage. Well, Mr. Dansby has been making a preach to Mike Brown, Marvin Lewis, and the crew for another former Brown, and a guy that you know pretty well, being an Ohio State Buckeye fan, Mr. Dante Hittner. Mr. Dante Hittner-Whitner. Mr. Dante, as we like to refer to it in Clerks. So, it's an interesting thing. It's an interesting prospect. I don't mind the idea of Whitner being on this team. I just don't want him to start for this team. And I think that we know the Shawn Williams and George Iloka are the guys as far as that safety position. And I really like the idea of Darren Smith. I think, everything we heard about him last year as far as being makes you think that he's going to be a contributor, whether it be on special teams or as just to fill in safety, similar to Shawn Williams' role last year. So, are you for the idea of Dante Whitner playing for the Bengals this season coming up? Do you like the idea? And if you do, where does he fit?
Well, I think he's one of those guys you could bring in as kind of like a player coach. Teach younger guys kind of another style, something that may fit, especially, Shawn Williams is still kind of finding his style in the NFL. Obviously Reggie Nelson taught George Iloka a lot. But again, another guy who brings experience. Maybe not the experience that we would all like with the Super Bowl experience or the playoff experience, at least immediate, because he's coming from the Browns. But, a guy who's very familiar with the AFC North, a guy who's very familiar with the teams there, and knows kind of what to expect week to week.
Yeah, I think, this is a guy who's done a lot of big things in the NFL. Even in his college career, he's a national champion there. So
yep.
He certainly knows how to play in big stages and big games. And like we said, he's been around a long time, so he fits in fine. I like the idea as far as like that mentor role, similar to what Reggie Nelson did. I don't think he's as good as Reggie Nelson, but
no.
I still think he could be a definitely good asset for this team.
Absolutely.
So I don't mind it. I don't know if Marvin's going to bite on it, because normally, maybe since Terrell Owens, have the Bengals really made a big time signing this close to training camp?
I don't remember them making that big of a signing outside of that.
Yeah, I think that was more or less because Antonio Bryant got hurt, if you remember.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, crap, we need a wide receiver, but T.O.'s out there.
Yeah. No, I agree with that one in terms of they haven't really done something this late. At least, that you would expect to make the 53-man roster. Obviously there's been times that they brought on surprises. But past that, he's still out there. He's still a good asset. And if something happens, especially, over the next month and a half with training camp starting, something like that, if he's still out there by that point in time, he may be a good pickup for depth and, as we said, for mentoring.
Yeah, I agree. I think if he gets picked up, I think he's a guy that definitely makes the team as far as like going into camp. I don't think he's an extra body guy by any stretch. But yeah, I think that it'll be an interesting thing to see what happens there for sure.
So, another thing we kind of talked about on Men in Stripes this week, and another thing that could definitely be debated is Andrew Whitworth, of course, coming towards the end of his career. He's got 1 year left. Obviously, he signed a 1 year extension before last season, and he's done, especially as of more recently as he's gotten older. He's done some incredible things. So, is the argument out there that, number one, and we'll start with this, but is Andrew Whitworth the best offensive lineman for the Bengals since Anthony Munoz?
Ooh. I don't know.
Not saying he's better than Anthony Munoz.
I don't take it that way at all. It's just hard because, like, Willie Anderson was damn good for a lot of years, man. Like, I mean, Willie Anderson was good for bad teams too. Like, Andrew Whitworth has played on like one or two teams that didn't succeed, but still had a ton of talent. Like, Willie Anderson had to block for like a bunch of terrible players, and he did a lot of good things there. So, is it fair to go 1A and 1B on the Whitworth-Willie Anderson debate?
You can. I mean, it's one of those things, and I know Willie Anderson was great, but we're also kind of looking at a time. Of course, the Bengals were terrible. He was one of the best blockers on a terrible Bengals team, except for maybe 1 year, and I think that was 2005 when they did well. So, I mean, from that perspective, you know, he really wasn't on a great team like we've seen now. With that being said, it's easy to stand out on bad teams.
Yeah,
and
it is.
So the question then becomes, was he really that good? Or was his success due to the fact that he was the best of a bad team?
He's got a few Pro Bowls underneath his belt, if you remember.
Well, again, so do a couple Browns, but that doesn't mean crap.
I would beg to differ on that. I mean, I know the Pro Bowl is not exactly like I don't think any All-Star game really matters, but four-time Pro Bowler, three-time first-team All-Pro. I mean, for 3 years running. Willie did the damn thing, man. Like, Willie was very good. But yeah, so I see your point for sure as far as like sticking out on bad teams. Especially, I mean, his first 8 years, I think the best season they had was back-to-back seasons of 8-8.
Yep.
Of course, he had that year in Baltimore too, which we don't have to talk about that. So yeah, man. I mean, I just don't know. Like, I'll be honest. I really like Whitworth, and obviously he's done a lot of awesome things in the NFL. He's done great things for the community. I don't think he's as amazing as everyone makes him out to be. Like, he's certainly a Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro. He's done. I mean, he's had an unbelievable career. He gets beat up a little more than mentioned, i.e. James Harrison in the last two Steelers games last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I mean, I don't mind talking about how great his career is. I think he's an all-time Bengal without a shadow of a doubt. There, he's a great leader on the field. I was a little annoyed with him when he was like upset about drafting Fisher a boy last year and like his comments there. But yeah, man, I think it's fair to say that what Willie Anderson was for the Bengals in the 1990s and 2000s.
1900s, wow.
Yeah, 1900s, yeah. The Bengals, in 1968. Andrew Whitworth has certainly been that from 2007 on? Was that year you got 2006 on?
Yeah. No, it's fair to say that Willie Anderson, and not taking anything away from him, he was a great player, but it's fair to say that we're looking at two definitely different eras. But we also have to remember, too, that Andrew Whitworth wasn't originally a tackle.
No.
Andrew Whitworth actually came from the guard position. And so when he made the transition, he ended up not only improving his career, but becoming, as you said, a leader on this team, somebody who's a captain. I mean, he's wearing the gold captain's badge for the fact that he's been a captain for more than for 5+ years. So somebody who absolutely holds this team together, holds this offense together, and for me, and considering, and I guess, obviously you look at stats when it comes to like the Hall of Fame. You look at what they did. But for me, somebody who's in the Hall of Fame is not only a great player, but he's a great leader on the field and off the field. He's somebody who the NFL looks to represent the brand and represent the shield. And that's something that I think you could actually argue for Andrew Whitworth, is the fact that he's a great leader on and off the field. He's got some great stats, especially since he switched over to tackle. He's been one of the best in the league. There's only arguably maybe 2 or 3 guys in the league today that you could argue are better than him.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And so, so I think in his generation of what we're looking Hall of Fame wise, as when he comes out versus a couple of the other guys, and I hate to say it, but Browns have a player on their team that very well could argue that.
Trent Williams from Washington.
Yeah, I mean those are 2 guys right there.
What's his name? Is it Jason Peters for Philly?
I wouldn't even argue that. They really can't keep a quarterback clean to save their lives.
Yeah, but he's been pretty damn good there.
He's been good, but again, is another argument of,
But it goes to you're blocking for Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, Nick Foles, and Sam Bradford. It's not like you're blocking for the Carson Palmers and the Andy Daltons in that circumstance.
Yeah, you're not blocking for pocket passers other than Sam Bradford, and Sam Bradford got rocked by your guy this year.
Yeah, he did.
So, again, I mean, and I'm not saying he's not a good player. Again, I just don't think he's better than Andrew Whitworth.
No, Whitworth's 2014 season was the best I've ever seen from an offensive lineman. I mean, Dalton didn't get sacked. He didn't give up a single sack. I think he gave up 1 quarterback hit the whole year.
I'd say this year I don't think he had a single sack allowed. He had more holding calls. I will say that.
Oh God, yeah, he did.
But
he killed us in that Seattle game.
But and then he absolutely tore it up and helping them come back in the 4th quarter by just absolutely locking it down. So he made the mistakes, and at the same time he brought them back.
Yeah.
So, but when you look at all that, I think he had 0 sacks this year. I think he only allowed 2 QB hits this year. So, and then 1 QB hit that was allowed by the whole entire line was the QB hitting Stephon Tuitt, who just basically picked off Andy Dalton's shovel pass. But that's kind of a different QB hit.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I think it's also fair to credit that those 2 hits he gave up, were AJ McCarron's snaps too.
Yes.
So I think that plays a part in there as well. So yeah, I see your argument. He's certainly done a lot of great things, and I think that he's gonna be on the ballot. He's definitely gonna be in consideration. I just don't know how far he'll go. Like if Andrew Whitworth were a Cowboy, no doubt about it, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right.
If he were a Steeler, no doubt about it. If you're a 49er, one of those historic franchises. But since he's a Bengal, I have a feeling that he could get into Canton. But it's one of those things where it takes 2 or 3 tries.
Well, and as I even said in the article, I think with the Bengals, it is truly a matter of they don't have a ring. And that's still in so many Hall of Fame voters, whether right or wrong, it still is something that they take a serious look at, and they put so much stock behind, even though, you know what? Some of the best players don't have control of whether or not they make it to, because they've got to rely on 21 other guys to do their job. And so, and this kind of is my argument with Ken Anderson, is Ken Anderson is a solid quarterback. He is just as good as some of them in Canton. The issue is he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. But here's the thing. He has 21 other guys he has to rely on to do their job. If it wasn't for the fact of, and this is, I know this is Boomer Esiason's years, but if it wasn't for the fact of a dropped interception, which was one of the 21 other guys' responsibilities, the Bengals would have a Super Bowl. And so it comes down to you're one guy on a team of 22 players that are constantly on the field and a roster of 53 guys who have a job to do. And so one guy can make a difference.
Yeah, I'm with you. And on that same Ken Anderson argument, I'll make the argument that Ken Riley should 100% be in Canton.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
65 picks. I mean, unbelievable years with the Bengals, but not even mentioned. It's unbelievable. It's horse shit. Total horse shit on Canton's end.
Yeah. So, but and again, and to Andrew Whitworth's credit, he's been with the Bengals since day one. He is the epitome of a career Bengal, and that's something that every Cincinnati fan should be proud of.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to see in sports in this day and age too. I mean, some people might leave for a few years, kind of go get some experience, maybe
Michael
win a couple
Johnson.
championships, and then they'll come back to their home. And they'll just now that they know how to win championships, what it takes, they'll win one for their home city. It's a movie. It's definitely a movie.
But you know what? Not many of those players will create a special of why he's leaving and keeping it a drama and having Boy Scouts behind them.
That was a bad decision. I would never argue that. But
I had to go
he also
there.
raised a ton of money for the Boy Scouts when he did that.
But because you knew what he had when he had those people there, that it was just kind of like one of those, okay, he's gonna stay in Cleveland, and it's like all of a sudden, oh yeah, I'm not staying in Cleveland. It's like, what? Are you a complete and utter idiot, or are those Boy Scouts from Miami?
Well, I think he had, ended up raising a ton of money, I think $9 million or so for the Boy Scouts that night.
Yeah, well, he made a ton of money for him, and he's done a great job. I mean, even when he was in Miami, he came back and helped fund his high school, St. Mary's, a whole new basically athletic facility, a whole new gym for them to train in. I mean, he's done good for the area for sure.
Have you ever heard that story? So, I went to the same high school as Sean Alexander, the old Seahawks running back.
Yep.
Have you heard that story where he tried to get AstroTurf at our high school, and the board wouldn't let him because the other schools didn't have it? So he was like, okay, I'll pay for theirs. And they said no.
I never heard that.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Let's move on here before we get into the politics in this world of sports. So, while we're talking about guys who could potentially come back, there's been some discussion over the past few days that Leon Hall is a possible return for the Bengals, and I'm going to go ahead and say, before we ask if they should bring him back, I'm going to go ahead and say no, but I'm going to go ahead and say that my reasonings are this. I think that it's going to take away from your young corners that you've drafted in the past couple of years, the Denards, the William Jackson IIIs that you just drafted this year. Chris Lewis-Harris has stepped up and played well when needed. I thought Chris Lewis-Harris played Antonio Brown way better than Leon Hall did in the playoffs, i.e. the fourth quarter, the fourth down conversion that leads to the pass interference, that leads to the field goal. Yeah. Who was guarding Antonio Brown in that play? Leon Hall. Who else would it be? How many times have we seen Leon Hall give up a 90-yard touchdown and quit 30 yards away from the end zone?
Yeah.
Are the Achilles injuries worth having on your team anymore?
Well, and for those who don't know, we do have a planning session every week, and it happens during Facebook, obviously, because we're in two totally different areas. And I think you equated in that discussion that Leon Hall to you is like my Brandon Tate.
Yes.
So, just to bring that up.
Honestly, man, it's not that he hasn't had a good career, because, 26 interceptions, four pick sixes.
Yeah.
Those are impressive numbers for sure. I'm not going to take away from that. What annoys me about Leon Hall is, this whole, for some reason, people had this idea that he was just, the best Bengals corner in a long time. It was the right move when that they could, he was so much better than Jonathan Joseph, and I was like, that's horse crap. And, it's just, what has he really done that's just blown you away? Oh my God, this guy's the man. I can't believe he's never made a Pro Bowl. He's going to be in Canton. Nothing. My summary of Leon Hall goes through one play, and it's not this year's Steelers game. The Steelers game in Cincinnati in the 14 season, when Martavis Bryant burns him. The Steelers are at the 6. They have a 94-yard, one-play, 94-yard touchdown where Martavis Bryant just burns Leon Hall, and he literally quits midfield and lets Martavis Bryant run to the end zone. That's why I don't want Leon Hall. I think you're taking away from your younger players that you've drafted, you want to develop. And I just, yeah, the veteran leadership's there, the teaching ability to help these guys. I just don't see what having Leon Hall do long term is going to be good for this team. Let him go somewhere else. Let him go to Dallas, where he's been linked to. Let him go to Arizona, where he's been linked to, because that's where all Bengals go to die, apparently.
Well, he can go to Baltimore too. Willie Anderson's career ended there.
By all means, let's have Leon Hall cover AJ Green and see how that goes.
No, give him the easier assignment. Give him Tyler Boyd, who can catch everything.
Oh my God, yeah. We all know guys from Pittsburgh like to beat Leon Hall anyway.
Exactly. See, it's a perfect match. So, yeah, Leon Hall for me, it's one of those that, again, I like the guy. I like what he's done in the time frame that he's been here. He has definitely been an asset to this team, but there again, he's one of those guys that probably doesn't know when to hang it up. So for me, I like Leon Hall. I think if you brought him back, you would be bringing him back as a coach, not a player, because I think he can teach some young guys some very good things, but he's not a guy that I am bringing back for the sake of to play the game.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, he had a nice pick in the Arizona game this year off Carson Palmer. I know he had the pick 6 against St. Louis, but I think the Bengals could have done whatever they wanted against St. Louis that day. Oh yeah, they did do whatever they wanted against St. Louis that day.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't see the reasoning. Let's let Denard develop. Let's see what you're getting out of Jackson III. You have one more year on the contract for Drake or Patrick. You still have Adam Jones as far as like that veteran leader. I think we can also agree Adam Jones is a better player than Leon Hall. So I don't see the need to bring him back.
Last thing we'll get into before we get into, of course, the ever famous picking up or putting down. Marvin Lewis, of course, everybody's kind of been on the fence with him, or a lot of people have been on the fence with him. Let's put it that way. In terms of his, basically how long of a leash he has now. Especially with the fact that they have the talent. They proved last year that they have the talent, but not the control. How much longer of a leash does Marvin Lewis have before they really have to make a move to go in a different direction to maybe spark some of that talent to finally finish? Touchy subject, I know.
Not really for me. I don't know, man, because the only thing that makes it hard is I agree completely that I don't know what Marvin Lewis does in January, but it's not working, obviously. They're talking about trying to keep Paul Gunther in the organization so he can be, the next guy to take over when Marvin's time's done. They tried to do that thing with Hugh, to sign Hugh to that deal, as far as like being the coach in waiting. I don't know, man. It makes sense to have this conversation, especially after 7. Is it 7 now? Are we up to 7? Yeah, we're up to 7 now. Trips to the playoffs where they've lost in the first round.
I think
we are
up 7 because this year they're going for their 6th straight.
Yeah. So yeah, man. I don't know. It's if you let Marvin Lewis go, he's immediately the best coach in the market. 100% best coach, unless you get Bill Walsh's ghost out there. You're not. I mean, if he's gone, you immediately have Marvin Lewis immediately becomes coach number 1 to target for your football team. So I'm indifferent on the case. He does make decisions that drive me nuts. I do wish he'd get a little more fired up at times instead of just clapping all the time and having the same face. But don't see how you can really. If you get rid of Marvin Lewis, what do you do? Does Paul Guenther come in and take that job, and you get your final defensive coordinator?
Well, you know who the assistant head coach is, right?
Who is it now?
It's Paul Alexander.
Oh,
Now, granted, he's still a positions coach, but he is. If something were to happen to Marvin Lewis, whether it's he finally pisses somebody off enough and he hits a ref and gets kicked out of the game, he's taking over. And so, and I think actually, if I'm not mistaken, Paul Alexander's been the assistant head coach for 3-4 years now. So, and it's not so much. Again, it's not so much that he is by any stretch, the perfect guy. But you're talking about somebody who knows the Bengals organization very well. He knows the players very well. He has a respect of the offensive line, who, by the way, has been the main reason that guys like Andy Dalton and A.J. McCarron have been able to improve the way they have. But you're looking at somebody who, again, is done incredibly well with this organization and would be a change of pace for this team. And again, somebody who has the respect of that whole entire offense. And not to say, too, I mean, a good defensive coordinator, Paul Guenther, would be a great asset to this team. But eventually, the defense is only good enough, and now the offense has to essentially finish.
yeah, I think that's fair. But I think that I don't know, because we say this all the time. But I think it might be fair to say that this might be it. I think this has to be it, honestly. Because what message are you sending to the players and fans if you lose again?
Yeah.
I mean, and you bring them back again. Because this is a team on paper. If everything clicks the way it should, the way you feel it will, they're competing for the AFC title. I think that the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Patriots, I've said it for the past few weeks, are going to be the three best teams in the AFC.
I fully agree.
So I think that, this has got to be because on paper, the Bengals look like they should be Super Bowl champs every year.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's time to really do something there and figure it all out.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, Marvin Lewis is a genius.
Right. Dude, he's done amazing things for the organization. Absolutely amazing things.
But I am still of the line that I think Marvin Lewis is a better GM than a head coach.
But if you make Marvin Lewis your GM, what do you do with Duke Tobin? Duke Tobin's been amazing for this organization.
Duke Tobin's been amazing for this organization, you're right. But at the same time, Duke Tobin can very well take a position, and no offense to and I know it's not going to happen, Mike Brown stepping down and Katie Blackburn taking over, but I would honestly be very much okay with Katie Blackburn taking the president's role, opening up the vice president of operations, putting Duke Tobin in the vice president of operations and and player personnel position that Katie Blackburn currently takes, and making Marvin Lewis, making him your GM.
The thing is, would Marvin Lewis want to be the GM? Like, how would you? I mean, yeah, it's a promotion, but don't you think there's some part of him that's like, man, I want to be on the sideline right now?
I think
for guys like John Elway, I fully get it. Like, you were an unbelievable football player. You can't stand on the sidelines anymore. Yes, go to the front office. For a guy like Marvin Lewis, where all he's done is coach, that's a little tough.
Yeah, but at the same time, eventually he's got to look at it from a perspective of, listen, I haven't gotten it completely done, but at the same time, I have my players' respect. I have my players. Basically where they want to play for me. And what better way to transition than to keep myself with my players, but also allow this team to grow further?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's definitely an interesting topic that we'll probably have until the day Marvin Lewis actually does leave Cincinnati.
Or becomes GM.
Right. Whichever happens first.
Yeah, exactly.
real quick before we do the picking up and putting down,
Yeah.
since we're starting our opponent previews there, do you want to touch on the Steelers real quick? Kind of give a quick prediction on what we think. I mean, quick
Yeah.
preview of them for the season.
We should. We definitely should.
Yeah. So what we're going to try to do here as we get ready for the season to start, because we're not too far away. We're down to, I think, 74 days till kickoff, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, pretty close. I just paid my season tickets off, so that was painful. Yeah, so we're trying to kind of touch on all the opponents, go week by week. Obviously, for division opponents, we're not going to talk twice about them, but just kind of touch a bit on the arch rival Pittsburgh Steelers, who we have so many nice things to say about. We don't, and just kind of give what we expect from that team this year, how we feel they're going to play, and everything. And you've heard us both say we feel like the Steelers are probably going to be. I mean, the Steelers and Bengals are going to compete for the division.
Yep.
I think we both agree with that. We say a lot of awful things about who these people are, because as people, they really are awful people, but they are very talented. Let's never take that away. I mean, you have a quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger who has been doing it for so long at a high level. You got to tip your cap to that. Especially, he's had a lot of bad offensive lines in his years in the league. He's had some good ones too, for sure. I think we can both agree that if Le'Veon Bell, when healthy, is probably the best running back in the NFL.
Yep.
He just amazing things he does. They have a really good backup with D'Angelo Williams, who I just can't stand anymore. I liked him so much as a Panther. And then when he went to Pittsburgh, that just changed. Wide receiver's a little interesting for this team, man. We obviously know about Antonio Brown, and he's unbelievable. He's so fast. He's so agile. He does great things. A lot of people have him as the first pick overall in their fantasy football drafts this year, which, man, I guess Todd Gurley and Adrian Peterson are playing this year or something. And then after that, though, having Martavis Bryant for those couple of years, that's not happening this year. So you're expecting Marcus Wheaton to really step in. I think Sammy Coates is going to get a little bit of a bigger role, obviously, there. I like Wheaton as a player. I don't think he can fill those shoes necessarily. But Ben Roethlisberger will make him work and make him successful. You lose Heath Miller, so Darius Greenfield's in that spot there. That's, I hate to say, a perfect fill-in. I'm so pissed off that deal went through. And then we know how good the Steelers are in the front seven, and we know how bad they are in the secondary. So, with that being said, I think if you look at the Steelers team, you look at their schedule and how it all plans out, they are like the Bengals, a 10 to 12 win team. But I think they have more weaknesses than the Bengals. They might win more games than the Bengals this year. I'm not going to say that's not a possibility by any stretch of the matter. But I just feel like when you look at the Bengals, what's the big hole now? Because I feel like LaFell and Boyd filled that wide receiver spot just fine from Jones and Sanu. I feel like their secondary is still good, even with the loss of Reggie Nelson and Leon Hall. The linebacking core, even with losing Lemur, is still fine. They still have probably the best front four in the AFC North for sure. With the Steelers, I don't love their offensive line. I never have. Is Le'Veon Bell going to be able to stay healthy for 16 games? And for the love of God, are you guys ever going to learn to cover A.J. Green? I hope you don't, obviously, but I feel like the Steelers have a lot of holes. I mean, not a lot of holes, but a few holes that are really going to expose them. And that's why I think the Bengals are the better team.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that the Steelers have to account for, and they can't at this point, I mean, obviously they brought somebody in the draft, is they lost their best passing option when Heath left. Heath Miller is, to this day, still one of the best receivers in the league and one of the best blocking receivers in the league, even though he was a tight end. Somebody who you can constantly count on, didn't drop many balls. And so now you have to account for that on top of the fact that you've lost your number 2/number 3, whichever you want to place, where you wanted to place Martavis Bryant. But you lost 2 receiving guys. And you've now got to make that up. And they don't have that. So their offense is going to be a little bit behind where they would be if Heath Miller was still there. And so for me, Steelers obviously have a solid defense other than the secondary. Although Sean Davis is a decent player and a decent option.
Yeah, it's a good move.
And so it comes back to, it comes back to the aspect of, can their offense be as good as what they've been in the past? And for me, my answer at this point is no. Obviously, Ben is going to, make a difference there, but can he make enough of a difference to make up for that loss?
My thing for the Steelers is, okay, we've seen you guys lose Le'Veon Bell to injury, and you're fine. What happens if you lose Antonio Brown for more than one game? What do you do? Like, if the Bengals lose A.J. Green for a couple games again, we know they have guys who go, okay, we have Bernard, we have Hill, we have Boyd, we have LaFell, we have Eifert, we have Croft, You can go down the list there.
Yeah.
When the Steelers lose Antonio Brown and Marcus Wheaton becomes your best wide receiver, like, that doesn't bode well. And that's not a dig on Marcus Wheaton by any stretch. I just feel like the Steelers, if you put their 11 on 11 out there, yeah, that's pretty damn impressive. What happens when they lose one of those 11? Who fills in? And
that's the big issue is, and every team goes through injuries. It's just a matter of time. And the Bengals, in all honesty, are prepared depth-wise a lot better. And even at the wide receiver position, we talked about, obviously, Eifert and Croft and Hewitt. But at the wide receiver position, you have your three. You have A.J. Green, Brandon LaFell, and Tyler Boyd. But then you have Cody Core behind him. You have Mario Alford behind him. You have... I'll say it. Well, yeah, you have him. You have possibly Brandon Tate, which drives me nuts to say. But he's a better option, no offense, than what the Steelers have behind their receiving core. And so, to me, this team is deeper. This team is more prepared for injuries. We saw the fact that they have a capable backup in A.J. McCarron to Andy Dalton. They have the capable backups on the line. If, say, Andrew Whitworth would go down, Jake Fisher could push over. You install Christian Westerman. This team is prepared. And depth-wise, they're one of the deepest teams in the NFL. The only team that you might be able to say is deeper is the New England Patriots, because for some odd reason, Tom Brady can make anybody good.
Yeah, he can.
So, that's one of those things that, again, we're looking at the fact that this Bengals team is better. And so, it's hard to say that the Bengals are going to lose to the Steelers, but at the same time, it's a divisional game. We've seen Cleveland be a better team than we will ever see in a divisional game, because you get up for divisional games in a different way than you get up week to week.
Yeah, I think I can go on record and say for now, because I think I predict one of the Bengals' losses to be the Steelers. I think they split this year. I don't know if they win at home or in Pittsburgh. Normally it seems like they win in Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh wins in Cincy. But I will go on record and say I think it's a split this year again.
Well, we have Paul Brown Stadium East and we have Heinz Field West. I mean, that's just how it goes. I'm right there with you. I think it's a split. I think the Bengals win in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers win in Cincinnati. I would love to see the Bengals play the more protect this house type role, but at the same time, it just seems to be a better place, weirdly to say, when they play at Heinz Field, especially if they play on a week that Pitt has played the day before, because the field, it gets roughed up, and it seems like the Bengals play better on that field when it is kind of a roughed up turf. So that one's weird.
So that being said there, as we did our touch on the Steelers, and don't forget next week we will preview the defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos, who will have quite a different look for sure next year. So we'll be able to touch on them, give our thoughts and previews there as well. So I think that go ahead and brings us to the infamous picking up or putting down, an exclusive here of Men in Stripes from StripePipe.com, a fan-sided network, also a Sports Illustrated network, and I'm sure that will expand and go so on and so on and so on. But we just know that a little bit at least. So Matthew, are you ready for this week's edition of Picking Up or Putting Down?
I'm always ready.
All right. Does Andrew Whitworth this year continue his stretch of being an all-pro offensive tackle, picking up or putting down?
You know what? I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to pick up. And the reason I'm going to pick up is because outside of the holding calls last year, we really saw no reason to believe that he can't keep it up at least for another year. And of course, he wants to go out at least as a Bengal at a minimum, but you know that he would like to go out of here. As people would remember him as one of the best on this Bengals team. And so I think Andrew Whitworth keeps up his All-Pro, Pro Bowl caliber play. And I honestly think that he does. He gives us another reason to continue to look at him as one of the best to play on this Bengals team.
Yeah, I think that this is gonna have a big year again too. So I'm looking forward to that as well. All right, so let's talk about a guy we haven't talked about for a few weeks here, and that is Mr. Andrew Billings. Remember that name?
That's a name we haven't mentioned in a couple weeks.
Yeah. So does Andrew Billings get 3 sacks this year in his rotational spot with Doma Tepeko?
I'm picking up, and I'm picking up because actually we're saying sacks. I don't know. Sacks. I'm going to say no. However, tackles for a loss are a different story.
They are.
I'm saying, I'll say this. I think he falls just short. I'm going to say 2 sacks. I'm going to say 5 tackles for loss.
Ooh.
So
we're putting down, but we're still giving a positive.
I'm putting it down, but at the same time, I think he does something that very few Bengals linemen have done, especially in their rookie year, and that's penetrate, especially against the run game, and get after the running back and be more of a force on the front line.
All right, I'll put down just because I don't think he'll get as many snaps, and I still think Marcus Hardison's a little bit of a dark horse. I think he's going to get his chance to play a little bit this year for them. So that's the only part really that might push it down there for sure. All right, so Matthew, it is your turn for picking up or putting down. How ready are you for this?
Well, let's see how I do.
I have faith in you.
Of course, we've talked about Marvin Lewis and his leash and how long. Picking up or putting down, Marvin Lewis earns himself another opportunity with the Bengals and even the Bengals fans after the season, and he'll be the coach in 2017.
Picking up, Marvin Lewis is going to win a couple playoff games this year. I don't know how many, but this team will be in the running, and I think this team will be in the AFC Championship.
Well, you know my feeling, and that is the fact that I think that they make the playoffs. Not only do they make the playoffs, I think they make the AFC Championship game. Not only do I think they make the AFC Championship game, I think they make it to the Super Bowl. And I think that this is the year that they can do that because it is a wide open field. I think he earns another year. I think he earns another maybe a couple years just by how the postseason ends up this year. I'd say if for some odd reason they don't make the playoffs, he's gone. But I don't see that happening. I see them making the playoffs. I see them making a run. Of course, it's all about injuries and about draws, especially in the playoffs. But I think this year's a good year for them.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
So, have you seen the preview for Pets? Because I know you were talking about that we wouldn't have really a fun one. Because I know you deal with little kids a little bit, especially your nephew.
Yeah, my 2 nephews.
So, have you seen the preview for The Secret Life of Pets?
Yeah, I have. That looks pretty funny.
So, picking up or putting down, because you don't have kids, but this is actually a cartoon comedy movie that you would spend the money in the movie theater to go see.
Yeah, man, I pick up. If you look at the cast of voices on the film, it's a pretty decent group.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would definitely do that. I mean, it looks like it would be a good film.
Well, I'm picking up, and not because I have a kid, but because of the fact that there is a dachshund, a wiener dog, that is getting a back massage by a blender. Or not by a blender, I'm sorry, by a mixer. And who wouldn't want to see that? Not to mention, what was it? Was it a little dog or something like that? There was a one where he was playing heavy metal, and all of a sudden you see everything bounce.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome. So
that is awesome.
we had to have some fun one, and I was like, all right, what am I gonna do for the second one? And he's probably gonna start. I gotta make it fun. So.
Well, I appreciate it.
And of course that comes out. I think July 7th. I think is the day that it comes out, and of course some great cast there that's gonna happen. I think Kevin Hart's in it. C.K. Lewis. Who else? Eric Stonestreet, I think, is in it. Who, if I remember correctly, is from Modern Family.
Yes.
So I definitely, and I think Dana Carvey's in it too, which would make it all worth it right there. Now, if only we had Olaf in it, that probably would do it for me.
I'm with you, dude.
Random Olaf drop for Secret Life Pets. We're going snowman over pets there.
Yeah, if only Disney would ever do that cross promotion thing that they'll never do.
I know, right? It would benefit them so much. Now, if I remember, who is this by? I always forget which studio's doing it.
DreamWorks.
Is it DreamWorks?
Mm-hmm.
So, that wouldn't be a terrible crossover. Although, I will say this. Because I think, didn't DreamWorks do Zootopia 2? Or am I going nuts on that?
That's Disney.
Was that Disney? That was Disney.
Yeah.
Crap.
I still need to watch that. I hear it's hilarious.
It is funny. It is very funny. Especially the sloth. The sloth was funny. By the way, we're getting off topic of sports and ending the show. By the way, we're talking about movies now. That's bad. We're gonna get comments from our Flick-Sided group that's telling us to stop taking their bits. But no, and I mean we have a little bit of fun, obviously, on the show. So
Absolutely.
But no. So Secret Life Pets comes out July 7th. If you haven't seen Zootopia, see Zootopia. It's funny. Also Red Cross for the helping, obviously, number one, the victims of the floods and the heavy rains that happened in West Virginia and Virginia. Remember to text 90999, donate $10 to the Red Cross. Of course, being part of the fire department, they do a lot of great work. I know that they're one of the few groups that most of the money goes to help the people that need it most. So definitely remember to donate there. Visit us on Twitter, Men in Stripes at SH. Email us, meninstripessh@gmail.com. What am I forgetting? Oh, YouTube page where this will be up at by the end of the night tonight, because we need to get it up so that we can work on then next week's. So, did I miss anything, Tim?
I don't think we missed anything at all.
All right. So, with that being said, of course, thank you guys so much for listening. Of course, thank you guys so much on Facebook. We are actually above 3,000 people now following us on Facebook. It has absolutely been fantastic, the response we've gotten there in terms of people listening and people responding on Facebook and even following us there. Follow us on Twitter at stripehype.com as well. Great articles coming out, great stuff, great content from these guys, including Tim. Make sure to keep up with us there. We will look forward to hopefully Thursday this week. We won't have any more floods and any more storms that knock out cable without power, but not power. And yeah. So with that,
Absolutely.
I guess we say hooday.
Hooday.
What we do here is go back.
Loud.